Dear Broken Oars viewers and listeners, just a little note to say, first of all, thank you very much for all the people who have supported the podcast by logging onto, as you can see, our little Buy Me a Coffee website and essentially buying me and Aaron a coffee for £5. And there have been some enormously generous donors. I'm not going to say that the podcast is in any sort of danger of making a profit, but certainly the wolf in the shape of my wife looking at this and saying, how much money are you spending on various bits of software to record a podcast, has been somewhat kept from the door for a while. So we're going to keep making this. As I said, I just want to reiterate, enormously grateful. But one thing, rather than just simply asking our viewers and our listeners to donate money to us, for which we are hugely grateful, we wanted to see if we could provide a little bit of value. So when you, and if you log on to our Buy Me a Coffee website, please just click on the shop button. And the shop, as you can see, we have essentially some silly little things. So what we have, they're all Excel spreadsheets, essentially, and you can download them for a fairly nominal fee, we like to think. Essentially, we have 3 training programs for distances that are not normally covered by specific training programs. So we've got Dr. Anoxia's 5K training program, Adjunct Electric Stein, who is a fine figure of a man, 500-meter ergo training program, a dedicated sprint training program, and Professor Evil's 1,000-meter high-intensity ergo training program. Now, I'm going to show you those in a little bit, and they are 13-week training plans with up to 6 sessions a week, suggestions for weights, all these kind of quite important things that are very valuable. But the thing I'd really like to talk to you about is the Evil Sports Science Power Widget. And this is something that actually, I think I've put a fair amount of time and thought into the training programs, but the Power Widget is something that I've been working on for a long time. It's actually, I think it genuinely will provide, how should I put this? It will provide value to both your training and your coaching of others in terms of their indoor training, particularly their training on the rowing machine. So just to have a quick look, let's have a look at our spreadsheets. Dr. Anoxia's 5K winter training program. I'm not going to stay on it because, obviously it's that, but it's essentially 6 sessions a week. It's very much biased towards anaerobic threshold workouts, UT2, UT1 workouts, the longer, the slower work. As you can see, by the end, you're getting up to 258 minutes of time under load a week. We can look at our progression as we go down here. Everything is spaced out in no more than an increase of 10% of minutes done in a week, and the intensity remains the same. The intensity distribution essentially remains the same from week to week. So it's a high volume 5K ergo program. There's nothing particularly special about it. If you do this rather than just going for a paddle on the ergo 6 times a week, you will probably go faster. We can't promise you anything because I don't believe any training program can truly promise that, but it will make you faster. Then we have the 500-meter training program. Now, again, it's a 13-week training program. It starts with 2 intro weeks taken from the 1,000-meter training program to get you used to the level of intensity that you're about to undergo, because this is literally 3 ergo sessions a week, 2 weight training sessions a week, and 3 rest days a week. Don't try and put anything in the rest days. It will compromise your training for the rest of it. There's a lot of writing here, but it's not very complicated. You do starts, you try and sustain speed, and then you give yourself something that will allow you to increase your levels of aerobic stamina. Because even in a 500-meter race, aerobic stamina is very important. So yeah, we've got two sides, and I've put this out like this. So when you print it, it all rocks up nicely, and you can just print it out and put it in your bag on 2 pieces of paper, or put it on the wall. Then finally, we've got the 1,000 meter training program with, thanks to Terry O'Neill, I'm going to admit this, who is the original Professor Evil. Essentially, various different workouts. Everything is at high intensity, with that kind of like the idea behind it, working your aerobic system to support your anaerobic energy production. So it's all about how long can you get that very, very intense anaerobic effort to last by supporting the anaerobic system with the aerobic system. Slightly complicated, but in some ways we can explain that complexity with the power widget. And this is the one that I'm actually recommending to you guys. So if we come over here, the Broken Oars Power Widget version 2, this is probably actually about version 9 or 10. What I'm going to do, I'm going to get that one. Can we hide quick access toolbar? No, we can't. Show quick access toolbar. Show tabs only. There we go. So essentially, what this is, very simply, this is a graph in Excel, obviously. It's a graph in Excel that, as we have a look here, distance in hundreds of meters, all the way from virtually 0 up to about 21,000 meters, which is the half marathon distance. Along here, this is the watts that you can sustain for that period of time. Really, really important. This has several functions. The first of this is simply to turn around and say, if I put all these things in here, so this is like a 7-stroke standing start. I think that's my 2K. Is that right? Yeah, 2,000 meters. That's my 5K just there. A little bit below the line. 2K is a little bit above the line. I didn't do too well on the old 5K. This 10,000 meters right there. Over here, we've got my 1 hour score, which came out to be 16,900 meters. And I've got my 21,100 meter score over here, which is essentially my half marathon score. Now, the first and obvious thing is you can put all these points on the graph, and if, for instance, you're told to do a 3K ergo test, you can come along here, you can draw a line up here using Excel. So, for instance, we can just, let's say actually you're told to do a 6K ergo test. I'll demonstrate this for you. We get our shape, our arrow shape, 6K. We start here. Move it up to there. That gives them that one. And then insert shapes, arrow. From right there, we come across and we realize that we're going to be operating at about 330 watts. Now, you may not know what 330 watts is. The Concept 2 website has got a converter, so you can use that. Also, here we go, watts versus split. I can come along here and I can say 330 watts around about here. Let's do exactly the same thing. Shapes. There we go. For 6,000 meters, I should be operating at about, shapes, let's just make sure I get this right. $141. powerful, optimistic, but that should be my goal. So obviously that would allow me to set out on a 6K test at about 142 and start working my way down on a negative splitting strategy. It informs my effort. That's what we're trying to do. Now, I would love to say this is a really, really simple spreadsheet to use. And to a certain extent, it is. But at the same time, it does need a little bit of instruction. So we've got a power curve of percentage of your 2K power versus watts. Your watts flat out versus your time. So here, these are time in minutes along here. Ooh. This is your watts versus distance. I'm just going to delete these. And you've got multiple, so you can overlay multiple different curves. And so, for instance, that one is me in, I think I've got this down here. That's my power in 2022, and that's my power in 2011. As you can see, my power in 2011 was a little bit higher. So let's just go through how you enter these in. So let's just use the time versus watts data entry, and this will give you your power curve as a percentage of 2K watts and your watts versus time full. Right, now, in order to enter data into, and going back to your watts versus full, here, to get this curve of your power in watts versus your duration in minutes, what we have to do is use time versus watts data entry. You've got the distance versus watts data entry, which relies on a very similar system, and multiple seconds versus watts. So that's time versus watts, but it doesn't all fit into the Excel tab. So coming back here to time versus watts data entry. I wish there was a simpler way of doing this, but there isn't. Or no, there isn't within my Excel skills. So essentially, you have a look at your time, and it's divided up into quarters of a minute. And the first one here is 15 seconds, which was my 7-stroke flat out burst. It's as close as I can get. You can put that 0 or a quarter of a minute, whichever it was. You put in your split, and automatically that will populate your watts and your percentage of 2K power, as long as you are careful to define your percentage of 2K power as what is right there. So that was my 2K. So that should probably be the first thing that you enter if you have a 2K score to enter. But essentially, you're going to come down here. That's my 1 minute score, 1 minute 19. You have to use this 00 for hours, then colon, and 01 for the minutes, and colon, and then 19 format. And you can see this here. This is given every single pace in minutes, seconds, etc. per 500 meters. Down here. And this thing here, all these little NAs, they're lookups, and they look up what is on here. So as you can see, 119, come down to here. That will look up along here, and it will tell you that 119 is 710 watts, or as you can see here, 709.883 watts. And that, in turn, will define your percentage of 2K power, which comes from this one here. Now, you can change any of these. There requires a little bit of fiddling around. So if I were to change this, this would then immediately mean I'd have to change what is $C $27 to, if I put that on the next one down for 6.5 minutes, to $C $28. But enough about the Excel lesson. I'm more than happy if anybody chooses to spend a little bit of money on this widget. I'm more than happy to take them through how to use it. So just DM us either on Twitter or on our podcast email, which can be found, I think, on all our social media sites. And yes, essentially, if you enter all these, this will give you this nice watts versus time graph here, which is that. And that tells you at 6 minutes and 30, that gives me my power slightly under 400 watts, which is shameful, really is shameful. And that will tell me how I can set this out. Now, this is a very, very useful little thing. It can tell you your progress over time. So again, multiple time versus watts. Again, you've got the data entry here, and you have my current split, my split in 2012 or 2011. And as you can see, there are a few slightly bouncy bits to this curve. Now, this is the last thing that I have to say. Excel won't draw this curve automatically for you. So I need to show you how to do this. So we're going to delete. We're going to delete that line, and we're going to, again, come up to Insert. Going to hit Shapes, and we're going to get this one, which is a curve. All we do, first click there, second, third, and then we come around the inflection point. Now, this is why we can't do this in an automatic fashion. And then once you put in the last one, we go like that. Now, if we try to get Excel to draw that curve for you, it would actually do a very bad job of it. So you have to draw your own curves. Like I said, this is not the most user-friendly widget. However, it is a very, very useful widget. So again, you have the ability to estimate your time for any given distance, or shall we come back here, any given time. You also have the ability to compare your performance over multiple times and multiple distances against each other over time, or you can compare different rowers to see where their strengths lie. And that's actually one of the most interesting things about this, because if you've got, let's say the orange curve is your top end rower here, you can see that the blue curve, which is actually in the sprint distance, doing slightly better than the orange curve, but in the longer distances is doing slightly worse. That blue athlete should focus more on, let's say, Dr. Anoxia's 5K long distance winter training program than he should on any kind of sprint work. And you could actually turn around and say to him, I don't want you doing sprints this week. I don't want you doing transition or anaerobic workout. What I need you to do is a UT1 or another UT2 session and raise this line up. Let's just zoom in. Raise that blue line up to the point of the orange line. And hopefully by doing that, we're going to raise these key markers of 1K, 4 minutes, 2K, and 5K up. So it's these markers around the inflection point are going to take you up there. Now, I've been going on about this a long time. I hope I've convinced you of the value of the widget. It's not, I'm going to admit, it's not the best made little power widget ever. There might be better ones out there. I imagine they cost a lot more than £10 to download, and they need to be updated, and you need to give people all your details. This is a way that we at the pod are trying to provide value to those people who wish to support the pod, and rather than just saying, oh, buy us a coffee. Here it's buy us a coffee and download a training program, or buy us a coffee and download the training widget. So again, to all those people who have chosen to support the pod, we are hugely grateful for your donations, and we're going to keep trying to make the content that you enjoy and that you ask us to make. For all the people who are yet to donate, please may I encourage you to consider, should you choose to, gaining a little more value than just a donation, which we appreciate greatly, but you could have an extra training program, or you could have the Broken Oars Power Widget from the University of Dyberstrom Evil Sports Science Department. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for listening. Bye.